question, is this the greatest heavy metal album of all time? I'm talking about Metallica, Master of Puppets from 1986. Some have said it is. When it came out there was a mixed response, but in general people thought it was a fantastic record and still do. When I first heard it, I think again from memory it was one of them that somebody taped for me first before I actually took the plunge. And I couldn't get over how heavy and powerful the bass was on this. The late great Cliff Burton obviously on bass guitar. The other thing about this record is how complex it was and how complex it is. That was the other thing that struck me. So those were the first two things that really hit me about this record. The bass and the complexity of the compositions. So this is the third LP from Metallica, and to my ear, probably the last truly great one they ever did. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that they did lose, very unfortunately, Cliff Burton, who died during the promotion of this record when they did a massive tour around America and Europe, because they didn't actually release any videos or singles or anything like that for this. Because to be honest with you, none of it really is suitable for a single, because the songs are quite long, they're quite intense, they're quite obviously heavy, very bass heavy, they're quite intricate, and it's kind of progressive really. This is progressive metal, really, at the end of the day. It's classed as thrash metal, but it's very progressive. So that was my interpretation of it when I first got it, when I first heard it. I remember seeing it in the shops before I bought it and looking at these pictures on the back and thinking, and obviously there's the guys looking like something from the original Children of the Corn, the top picture there. And I just remember looking at the colours, the images, obviously the front, and just thinking to myself, I know that this is a great record. I haven't got the balls to buy it yet because I'm not prepared to take that kind of risk. I might not like it. And it was expensive. I remember the shop I saw it in. It was the old Piccadilly Records in Piccadilly, Manchester, before they moved it. And I just remember looking at it and thinking, I know that this is a good record. And then I heard the tape from my mate who taped it for me, and then eventually I got it. I got the first two first and Master of Puppets last, and that really inspired me to be much more interested in heavier music, particularly thrash metal. And the pictures on the back, I just wanted, basically I had an interest in the drums, and I just wanted to be Lars Ulrich. For a good couple of years I wanted to be him. I know he's a very polarising figure as time has moved on, and to be honest with you, he's not one of my favourite drummers anymore. He was then, along with Nicko McBrain and Clive Burr. But anyway, back to this monster of a record. It was recorded again in Copenhagen. I tried to do it in America, but things weren't going right, so they went back to Copenhagen to Sweet Silence Studios and did it there. Lars Ulrich had drum lessons again. Kirk Hammett worked with Joe Satriani during the recording process, just to sound a little better on record, possibly. I think that was the idea. I mean, in my opinion, it didn't need to sound better, but you know, obviously people thought he did. A hugely influential record in general. It's had massive respect from all kinds of people. But there was a mixed response. There were some negative reviews when it first came out. Not that that matters, of course. But in general, it was seen as a fantastic record. It's been hugely influential over the years, in many ways, with songs appearing on massive hit TV shows, etc. And how did it do in the charts? Well, it did very well. I mean, this thing sold 6 million LPs in America alone. So that's a fantastic return, just in America. What songs have we got now? Well, we've got all the classics, of course. We've got Battery. The way that song begins, still to this day, when I first hear that acoustic guitar intro, that almost Spanish flamenco guitar style intro, but with a darkness underneath it. I don't know how he's done that. I don't know how they've managed to conjure up that darkness, but this is a very dark record. And it should be, because the lyrical content is very political, quite dark, and to be honest with you, the lyrical content about control and political control really does apply still today. Nothing has changed. It was almost like these guys were looking into a crystal ball. Nothing has changed. I just wish Metallica's lyrical content nowadays was still as interesting, because quite frankly, it's in one ear and out the other. But maybe that's a sign of age, who can say. But yet, to me, this is still probably the best Metallica album. Probably. We have Master of Puppets, The Thing That Should Not Be, Welcome Home Sanatorium. I mean, these are just fantastic, epic songs. Side 2, Disposable Heroes, a real thrasher, a real mosher. Leper Messiah, much more considered, but still brutal, very heavy, very thought-provoking. Make your contribution and you'll get a better seat. You will, you just will. Orion, the instrumental, a classic instrumental with so many different moods and flavours on just one piece of music, is extraordinary. Goes on for 8 minutes, and then it finishes with the ultimate absolute thrasher on this album, 100 miles an hour, Damage Inc., with the famous fuck, 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 fuck all over it. So, how did this do in the charts? Well, let's have a look, shall we? In the States, it did particularly well, as I say, 6 million. Almost the same amount in Canada as well. So, I mean, it didn't get to number 1 anywhere, but it did get to number 7 in the US rock albums, but you kind of expect that. Number 29, the normal US Billboard chart. Number 41 in Britain, which, not too bad, considering what kind of record it is, it's not too bad at all. Poland, yet again, knocking it out of the park at number 3. Number 7 in Finland, again, those Finnish guys, they know their stuff. Now, just a little bit on Cliff Burton. He obviously did die on this tour, the tour that promoted it, in a coach crash, which had never really been cleared up whose fault it was, if it was anybody's fault. Certainly wasn't Cliff's fault, because he was fast asleep, so that's where the rest of the band. But I think that we really lost somebody very important now. Metallica lost somebody important, and to my ear, they never really recaptured that brilliance, that originality, that musicality, those compositional skills, all gone in the death of one man. Great shame. The records that came after it, I mean, it's very ironic, really. And Justice for All, the record that came after this from 88, had no bass on it whatsoever. So, very, very ironic. And very sad, because they never recovered, as far as I'm concerned. They never recovered. The records were never this good ever again. They were never this brutal, they were never this thought-provoking, they were never this powerful. They just weren't. And a lot of that's down to Cliff's influence just being wiped out at such a young age. Ridiculous and sad. But nothing can be done about it. Absolutely nothing. Maybe they should have just gone their separate ways, a bit like Nirvana did. Because I think the death of Kurt Cobain was just as important and just as awful as the death of Cliff Burton. The two are up there to me. It's the great rock deaths in my lifetime. Cliff Burton and Kurt Cobain. Because without those guys, you can't have that band. You know, you just can't. It would be like, I don't know, one of the main members of Rush or Iron Maiden dying. You can't possibly continue. Okay, so that's me on a bit of a downer, but we still have this magical record and the two that came before it for all Metallica fans. I know Metallica went on to massive, massive things after this with the Black Album, but to be honest with you, some of the Black Album to me sounds a bit country and western, and you know. Anyway, this is Metallica at their very, very best. Master of Puppets from 1986.